Hello, I am Umbrenero, and welcome back to Umbrenero's Life. Today's video is my July 2025 plan with me. So, I've been doing a theme all year long. I've been using boxes of Pokemon cards, Elite Trainer boxes that I had for inspiration. Same thing here. This time, it's the Twilight Masquerade box, which is a lot of teal and blue. So, very simple, very easy. And yes, this video is slightly late. Not as late as May was or June was. So, we're getting right into it with our monthly calendar. And, as you can see, on the right side of my spread here, I already went through and cut my pages because I wanted tabs this month to make things a little bit easier and just a little nicer, because I wanted to do something different. And you know, it's nice and it's not overly repetitive of doing the same exact thing. And yes, I did take a minute here to make sure I had a couple things together because I started recording before I was fully ready, which does happen. But since I had most of my things together, it was time to actually get started. So for my calendar, I wanted pretty straight lines. I don't know what got into me for the spread to actually have lines that were done with the ruler, but it is what it is. I just felt like it. So I used a dark gray Tombow that I have to start putting in all of the lines, and yeah, it explains itself. And the way I did the measurement was so that way I had enough space on the right side of my calendar as there is on my left side, just so that way, hey, with my tabs, they're pre-measured out and it's going to be the perfect size for what I want to use. I did know I was going to need some color to bring in the theme on this page at some point, but that was a later me problem. I was focused in on just getting all of my line work done and taken care of, so that way it was one less thing to do later on. And since I had the calendar itself done, I figured I need to put in my title for the month. And since I didn't have a huge area to really put one in, I decided to split it up. Half of it on the left page, half of it on the right. And this is where I start bringing in some of my colors for this theme. And then on the box that I'm using as an inspiration, there are some of these little stars on it. Realized I was using too thick of a side of my marker and quickly changed that up. But this was a way to get one of the other common colors that was on my box into my design. But even having the two main marker colors here, I didn't feel like it was enough. And sometimes that feeling when it comes up, you know you gotta do something. So that is exactly what I ended up doing. But obviously, the calendar needed to be done before I could even get there, because otherwise I would have completely forgot to fill in all my numbers. Which it wouldn't have been the first time, but it's been a while since I've forgotten to do that part. So this is when I decided I needed some more color to make this feel more inspired by this design and this box. So I was actually digging around underneath my work table here, where I had some of my distressed inks put away. And like, I think I have a color that will work perfectly for the month of July. And I did. So I went and grabbed my ink sponge, because I don't do makeup. I avoid it. And I use makeup sponges for my inks because it just makes sense to me. And I started adding in the color. So I started going through on the left side first, putting in the color. Didn't realize I had my journal shifted down a little bit so you don't see the bottom of it, but I put the color in the whole way. Then I realized it, because of course I noticed eventually. Then, before I even started on the left side, I knew I needed to take care of my little tabs. Well, at least the tab for this first page. But before I went to that, I needed to trim the corners because I wanted them to be rounded off like they are on the full-size pages. Realized on the top with the tab, I couldn't fit my little corner cutter, so I had to freehand it. Not the first time I've done that, so went grabbed the scrap from when I was cutting the corners and used what I had on hand to make a mark to cut off. Then here is where I decided to get my color in, and I went through the main colors I am using this month for each of the tabs. So started with the dark green that's almost a teal as the first color. Added in the rest of my border color for the page, and that was roughly it. I did a couple last second erasings, then it was on to my goals and things page. But before I could even start, I had to get my tab finished up. So back in with that dark greenish teal. First, just to put in where my tab is, so that way when I started doing my ink, I knew exactly where to go. And even then, I did kind of go a little crazy with my ink. But first things first was erasing away the pencil lines that were there, because those would have gotten in the way. Then here, I did mostly on the upper left corner here for my distressed ink, because I wanted to really try to keep it organized and slightly controlled chaos, but still some chaos. And then it's like, alright, I'm having to go farther down than I wanted because I was not narrowing out my little decorative area as well as I'd hoped. Then I grabbed my teal marker, well, my bluish teal marker, and added in my little header of goals and things. And yes, I just decided last second, I'm gonna do this little swoop underneath because I can. Then it's like, well, I need more on here, so I added the little stars and speckles right next to it to fill in that little bit of an empty space, just to make the header look slightly intentional, even though it's not the best I have done. But that was it for my goals and things. Very simple page that did not take long to do at all. So now we're on to a spread that I'm calling Dad Stuff. I help my dad out a lot because he is older, and I just needed a spot to put things for that I needed help with him with and to take care of for him in a spot, so I had it all organized. And before I even got to decorating the page, I went and trimmed the corners, fought with my little corner cutter for a second, like I usually do. And yeah, there's stuff that I help him out with that I just needed to get to, and having it all in one area does make it easier. So, first things first, well, second thing is I got the tab colored, and I did not want my titles for the pages to be the same color as the tab for that page. So, had the tab done, then I'm like, alright, let's put in my main color element on this page, this time in the upper right hand corner, not as thick as I did on the left side with my goals and things. So I just did a nice little light corner coloring, looked pretty good, said good enough, grabbed my dark greenish teal marker and said, alright, we're gonna do a simple title here. Not gonna do the same color swoop underneath. Gonna go simple and make it work. I did toy with adding like a little mini calendar here, but I decided against it in the last minute because then it would have been very small, and anything that would have needed to go on there would have been really crammed together. So I instead ended up making like a list of date things and a to-do list for him, just to make it easier. But with that completed, it was time to head over to a spread that I have not had in a very long time, a spending tracker. With how the last few months have gone, I felt I need to kind of keep track of my spending. And what better way than to make a little spending tracker? But I had to be very limited in the size that I was actually going to make it, because immediately following my spending tracker are my weekly logs, which they can take up quite a bit of space on their own. So this time, instead of putting in the color first, I put in my title, because I needed to see right where that was going to go and what all I was I was going to put in for my tracker. But before I could decide what was going on there, I had to make a mark for where the first of the month is going to end up going, because I only had a partial page that I could use for this. I'm making use of the little bits I do have. But with where my header ended up being, I knew, okay, I'm not going to go much farther down than where I am here. So I'll put my color here and then a little bit in the corner, just to show that it's the end of this little section, just to kind of give it a little bit of a symbolization here. And luckily, that little bit of the color on the bottom there should not affect my spending tracker unless I spend way too much. But this is where I decided what I'm including in it. And this was all spur of the moment because I did not fully think this through. Which just happens while I am doing these. And, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. So I decided to put in the date, the amount, and where I spent the money, because easiest things to track. Which reminds me, I should probably go in and actually fill this in. But now we're on to my weekly logs. And here, I kind of did everything in stages. So stage 1 was going through doing the corners, fight with my corner cutter again, because it always decides to cut weird if it doesn't go in the exact way it wants to go in. But you get used to it after a bit and you figure out exactly what way to put your paper in to not have these issues. Came across the final corner that was going to be difficult, which I easily just took the page before, traced that, cut along that. It worked good enough. Not perfect, but good enough. So here I decided I'm gonna do my tabs next. Well, and decided, all right, next one is gonna be the light gray. Then I moved to the next, which ended up being my dark gray, which is almost a black color, but it's not. And then I went and repeated the first 2 colors again for the last 2 tabs. And for my theme, I felt like this was a good pattern to do because it really gave the vibes of my inspiration box that I was using. And yes, all of the tabs have kind of their own little personality as well with how I colored them. I didn't notice until now, so I had fun with them. But next was getting in the daily parts to my weekly logs. So I had pre-measured on some of the pages where to put my lines. The only problem was my marks were all on the parts that I had cut off initially, except for on the first page. So I was doing a lot of eyeballing and guessing where my lines were supposed to go. And I was using my tabs as a, hey, this should be around here. This should be around this spot. And I should have just made marks closer to the spine of my journal to make it a lot easier. But I made it work. I don't know how, but I made it work. So I repeated this through the rest of the journal spread that needed it, because the first week and the last week have shorter amount of days. I had uses for both spots. So the spending log was for the front. Do have something in the back for the little bit of a week that was not used up there. And then on the last page there, the last 2 days of the month did get extra space because they did go a little bit farther, which is fine. And if I fully fill in this spread, it'll actually look pretty neat and be kind of nice. So then I went, grabbed my light gray marker, and this is where all of those little star shapes come back, and I did this for every single day. So that took me a bit. This didn't take as much time as it could have, but it took enough time that I actually became very hyper focused at getting my spreads all done. And you may notice the top right box has not been getting filled in. That's because the goal is to throw in like a little mini to-do list of stuff that I need to do that week and get done, like a general to-do list. We'll see if I actually use it that way or if I will end up putting in like little notes of things that happened that week as like a little reflection area for during the week. But so far, as of the day of recording audio, I've been putting my little reflection things within the day spots as I had them. But I alternated colors, put in all of the days for the month. Now, onto that little pesky section at the end. I brought back a migration section. And here, I wanted it to be very simple and very straightforward. I didn't want to do a full-fledged month in review. I didn't want to answer questions about why is this way and stuff like that. I want it simple. It's like, all right, for August, do I have something going on? Yes or no? What's going on when? What's a project I'm working on at home? What's something I need to focus on? That's it. I want it to be simple, straightforward. So, quick, easy migration. Brought back the little swoosh, but did it in a different color, which I felt was a little bit better. And then it was time to bring back my distress ink. Didn't want to go too crazy, so I stayed in the lower right corner the best I could. Didn't go too far into the writing area. And then I just went up to the top of my header. quick, simple, and not that difficult. And it brought a last little tie-in to the color theme that I was doing through most of the pages. But as for the final look, I do really like how this has turned out. I can say, as of the date of recording audio, I have used this journal, this spread specifically, a lot more than I have a lot of my past months, because I'm trying to get stuff back on track. And I think I'm going to use it quite a bit more yet. So, thank you for watching, and until next time, I am Umbrenero. Bye!